Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. Our guest this morning is Dr. Tunji Abayomi, constitutional lawyer, and he is joining us from our Abuja studio. Good morning to you, Dr. Abayomi.
Good morning, Mr. Yori.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, for making the time available. Okay, I thought we'd look at some legal, it's a specialized area, legalisms and all of that. And first of all, a committee has been inaugurated by the Attorney General of the Federation as it concerns Memoranda of Understanding between Nigeria and whoever, actually. I think this has to do with international trade and all of that. It's called the Legal Audit Committee, and it's to audit agreements and MOUs on accredited gas development projects. Well, it will come to mind that the P&ID case, which was embarrassing, and thankfully Nigeria came out of that clean. But maybe this is as good a time as any to talk about the importance of these kind of audits. And is it that they weren't in place before? Because the law itself is a sufficient minefield. But when it comes to Memoranda of Understanding, how far away are those from the law? In other words, I'm really trying to understand what is the importance of committees like this?
Well, obviously, the nation has gone through a number of embarrassing experiences. The P&ID case is just one of the many challenges that the nation faces, largely because of inappropriate or just very limited attention to international treaties, MOUs, and agreements. There are quite a number of them. I think a while ago, a few years ago, the National Assembly held a hearing on arbitration agreements,
yes,
treaties, and so on and so forth. And there are quite a number of them. So I believe what the Attorney General is doing is now looking at another major area of commercial interest to Nigeria, and that is the gas sector, to avoid the landmine that has characterized understandings with regard to the oil sector. I believe this is essential to do, but perhaps a more interesting and vital, in my view, effort that the Attorney General should do is to strengthen the commercial sector of the Federal Ministry of Justice. What he has done now is largely ad hoc, in the sense that they have just, I think they have a few weeks to present their 3 months to present their report. The work they are expected to do is obviously large in terms of a review and auditing of most of these agreements and understandings. But after the job is done, then where do we go as a nation? I think these are the paramount issues that should preoccupy the Attorney General of the Federation.
Is it that the law, there are areas, does the law create gaps, so to speak, that projects such as this are now meant to sort of plug? Because the law can be quite comprehensive. In fact, so much so in its quest to mop up most possibilities, if not all possibilities, it often gets, the language of it gets contorted to those who are not legally inclined or of legal mind. So in spite of the great attempts of the law to encompass all that is relevant to a subject matter, does this suggest that there will still be gaps, and so we need, audit committees for MOUs? Because this is about MOUs. And how much of a difference is there between a memoranda of understanding and a law?
Well, the position of the law is that an MOU is not an agreement, but an intention to enter into an agreement. But it is a foundation of a foundation for understanding, so to say, to enter into some form of agreement. That's what the law is. Basically, an MOU is not enforceable as it is, but is a representation that a party can justly rely upon under the law. So we have quite a number of MOUs, binding nations, and of course we also have commercial agreements. Now, this is a very serious area because if, for example, you look at the P&ID case,
yes,
award against Nigeria was running into over $6 billion. That will show you the essentiality of these commercial agreements. They can really wind up a nation and embarrass any nation, the interest of any nation. Now, in terms of gap, the truth of the matter is that every agreement, if not well constructed and well written out, will leave a gap for any party when there is disagreement. In the case of Nigeria, we are basically, prospecting for wealth and money to come to the nation, either by way of selling our products, by way of agreements. And then the other complication we have is that because government changes in our country, the tendency of succeeding governments is to simply abandon existing understandings instead of looking at them and working with them. So out of this negligence, the nation runs into landmines. But
okay,
a state government is not an entity in international law. You go against the federal government itself. So there's a need for collaboration, understanding, and even training and establishment of a very sound commercial department in most of the ministries of justice, MOJs, in our country.
Because another thing that I think is related with this subject matter is that quite a number of times when we have these disagreements, take for instance the P&ID case that you just mentioned, oftentimes the courts, we find ourselves, Nigeria, where we are an interested party, but this matter is not decided in a Nigerian court. It's decided in a court abroad. Again, so this further complicates the whole matter. Again, we have had situations, although I imagine it's not in the commercial area, where our courts have, for instance, said a matter is decided in a certain way, and then the same matter is presented before a foreign court, and it is dealt with differently. Yeah. And indeed, if there are sanctions, sanctions have been imposed according to the agreements in that foreign court. And Nigeria can't get up and say, hang on, no, that's not what we decided. This is our case. How does all of this work?
Well, I think commercial agreements of the nature we're talking about, especially when they are entered into with regard to our country, faces two major challenges of international groups, commercial bodies, is that they cannot find true justice in our courts. There is a need, and this is the work that I believe the Federal Attorney General needs to do with the head of the judiciary. There is a need to do a whole lot about our judiciary. Today, Nigerian judiciary is very corrupt and is compounded by basically three problems, two of which are brought on it by politicians. Corruption through money influence, corruption through personality influence and position interest, and of course, a lot of competence because of the appointing processes. In the past, judges were appointed according to the distinction, the merit. You look at their background, how well have they done in their understanding and knowledge of law? All of that have been defeated in our time. Then you have the corruption of money. I believe in Nigeria today, you can barely find more than 5% of our judiciary, of judges, who can take an oath before their God and say that they haven't been influenced by money or by position or by some other interests. So, when you are entering a commercial agreement and you see a nation where the judiciary is so corrupt, nobody wants to bring his arbitration or conflict to that nation. That's the first thing. The second point is also in the drafting of the agreement. We need good lawyers who are vast in understanding of the intricacies and delicacies of international agreement, where, for example, many of them would rather go to international arbitration where we have very little control in terms of, even representation, So that's another problem. So we have this problem of drafting, which is a problem of knowledge-based, and we also have the problem of the defeat of the judicial reputation by the perception that our judiciary is very corrupt and very subject to influence.
Which brings us to the matter of the legal. If anybody's wondering, what is the legal standing of Nigeria in international fora? Because you've just said that, look, of course, the departments of justice, the ministries of justice, and the judiciary will be those things that they'll be looking at in order to determine, as we are putting it, the legal standing of Nigeria. A country does want its reputation not to be tainted, not to be maligned. But you've just said what is also another subject of conversation locally, the corruption of the entire judicial system. Right now, as we are speaking, some judges are being sanctioned for all sorts of dishonest practices. So there's all of that. So when we come to a matter of looking at the international standing of Nigeria, I wonder how well you think we stand. But hold on a moment, sir, because a call has come in. Reverend Dominic has called in. Let's take on board Reverend Dominic's comments. Good morning, Reverend Dominic.
Good morning, Chief Yori. Good morning, Dr. Abayomi, my organic top. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. It's nice to talk to you.
Yeah. So the issue of judiciary here has become the worst Nigeria is facing these days. And I can give you an example. I'm from Imo State. For over 3 years, I've been to that state as, let's say, a man like a fugitive in his own nation. I will sneak into Imo State and I will sneak out. Why? The problem is the root of judiciary. Since the judiciary did what they did 4 years ago in Imo State, and we have a new government, and I don't want to mention, and they came. So the people look at that government as not their own. Let me be frank to you. And we are in Nigeria, we want to correct it. I'm a pastor. They called the governor of Imo State today, Supreme Court governor. You know how that matter went through. That a man who was fought on examination become forced overnight. As long as we have this kind of judiciary, sir, this is why we will have a contract in Nigeria. The one that happened in a good state. Somebody signed a contract in Nigeria. I have a little idea of law. You sign a contract in Nigeria, you take the litigation in London. And the London court will take that litigation. Why? Because if you bring that litigation to Nigeria, there will be no good sense of judgment. What I'm trying to say here is not judiciary is corrupt, sir. We do respect you. You are very right. But as long as we don't heal our politicians who take money to judges, who live in Nigeria, so me today, I don't know where I belong to, whether I'm poor or average or rich. I can't buy fuel. As a pastor, I don't even know how I can. If you bring me 1 million naira today, and I will say as a pastor, I won't take it. Because my children is in school, I can't buy fuel, I can't take care of myself. And these judges are Nigerians. Their children go to school, they buy the same fuel, they live in their house. As long as politicians are bringing money to them, our judiciary will be this way. Last thing, sir, look at River State. Even an illiterate, is it not insulting the kind of judgment you have seen in River State off and on? Somebody will go to a state court in River State and get a judgment. He will run down to Abuja, a matter in River State, and get another judgment. And we are in this mess. I'm pleading because I followed you in Nadeko when we were sleeping in the bush. That people who do not fight with us should not spoil this democracy. And they are politicians. I don't accuse judiciary more of it. I accuse the politicians who take this money to them. God bless you, sir. And God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic, for that commentary. Okay.
Yeah. So what? Okay.
No, did you want to, if you wanted to come back on that, sir, because I wanted to pursue.
Yes, I wanted, yeah.
Please go ahead.
Yeah,
you
can go ahead. Maybe, okay, what I wanted to say is the point he's raising, the effect on commercial relationship with the world is so profound, because nobody wants to lose the money, it's money, unjustly. That's really the problem. I think, I'm not even sure our nation knows the terrible effect of the level of corruption that is in the judiciary. Those of us that are practicing law, sometimes when we listen to a judgment, particularly in the lower courts, it just shocks your conscience. It shocks your conscience. I was before a judge who said to me I should have come to see him for the purposes of enforcement, and I said no, I have never gone to see a judge. This is the type of you trade justice, you know, and then the issue of it was Ambassador Maitama Sule. The late Ambassador Maitama Sule, the former UN representative of Nigeria, when he was visiting Professor Nwabueze, who said a nation can absorb a lot of corruption, but when the judiciary of a nation becomes corrupt, like the Nigerian judiciary, and this is quite a number of years ago, the nation is imperiled. And the situation today is considerably worse than when he spoke, at least over 7 years ago. So how do you then expect anybody to accept that resolution of conflict, which must emerge? Even our constitution recognizes that conflicts between parties, between institutions, must come to the court. How do you expect any serious world body or commercial or company, international company, to believe that it can bring its affairs under the authority of the judicial system that is perceived as very, very corrupt. These are the issues, the challenges that face Nigeria. When the people themselves have no faith that they can go to court and get simple justice. In this nation today, if you have money, you can commit murder and get away with it. That's the tragedy of Nigerian nation.
Wow. Yes, indeed. Did I understand you clearly when you said at the top of the program that MOUs, on the one hand, are not necessarily enforceable the way law is? Did I hear that correctly? Did I understand it?
That's correct. That's correct. MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, that's what MOU is. Yes. It's just an understanding to enter into an agreement. In other words, something that's a platform that lays the foundation. You cannot go to court and insist that it has to be enforced by binding order. A memorandum of understanding is just an understanding to enter into an agreement. It is different from, for example, an agreement, simplicity.
Okay. And so I'm trying to understand, therefore, the import or the importance of the Attorney General's office constituting this committee to audit agreements and MOUs. Yes. I can imagine. Yes. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead, sir. To tell a non-legally minded person.
As you can see, you can also appreciate the Attorney General didn't limit it just to MOU. I think he understands that MOU is not an agreement. He says MOU agreement. So you can enter into an MOU, for example, to establish a company. It's just an understanding that you are going, at a point, you have agreed to register or establish a company,
Yes.
But, for example, if, you refuse to cooperate for the registration or incorporation of that company, can someone go to court and say that, look, we entered the memorandum to go register a company? No, you cannot. Or to get an enforceable order to compel the incorporation of that company. That's not possible under an MOU. I think basically it's a gentleman's agreement to further take the next step. So MOU agreement is enforceable by binding order of court, but an MOU cannot.
Okay. Good morning, Henry, in Port Harcourt. Okay. I just lost Henry in Port Harcourt there. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll take a break now. Dr. Abayomi will be right back to continue with this conversation. Please stay with us.
Yes, thank you.